basically detoxes the body and detoxes and cleans your blood. The question is, does it really ever get out of your system? Or is it dealt with or brought to a place where it's minimized, and the result of it is not as noticeable? So these are things that we have to really be careful of, very careful of. So once again, you don't want to be somewhere where a deficiency is created. You don't want to be somewhere where it creates a lack. That's right. And you understand, our people are destroyed. Why? Because of lack of knowledge of what? Of the Torah. Right. Except the Torah is the foundation and the platform we build in and upon, we're in trouble. And I'm not talking about the traditions. We're already dealing with traditions. That is why as a people, we're still so divided. That is why as a people, do you not know we all have position in his kingdom? Right. Because we're his children. But then you have those that have a different understanding when it comes down to the writings. And this is where problems come about because of interpretation. If we all have the same Ruach HaKodesh, and she is our leader, and she is the one that's giving us the interpretation, then when we're at the table, we all are going to agree because we all are receiving our information from one source. Right. When you have 2 and 3 sources, you will have 2 and 3 interpretations, possibly more. And this is what causes problems. You have to understand, Abba Yahuwah didn't come to bring confusion, but he did come to bring a sword. He brought a sword, not confusion, because he is not the author of confusion. So let's always keep that in mind. He is not the author of confusion. Now, the question was asked, could heathen Gentiles get into Yahuwah's covenant? Now, let me show you something. I want to show you sometimes the interpretation and the misconception and misinterpretation. You have to understand when our people were because we were acting like what? Heathens. So we became Gentiles, or we were put in a place of Gentiles because we lost our identity. We lost, when a person forgets who they are, guess what? They tend to take on that what is closest to them. And we took on the identity of the people that we were associated with. Because this is where we began to live and called our what? Call our home. And so calling this our home, we began to take on the same lifestyle. Are y'all following me? Yes. And by taking on that lifestyle as being Ibram or Hebrews, we became Gentiles. Now the question was asked, could heathen Gentiles to Yahuwah's covenant in the beginning? Now you have to understand, we were already a part of the covenant. But when our ancestors and forefathers lost their first estate and the Abba removed them, this is why Yahush had to come in to play. In order for us, which are the children, now watch this, let's go back into Hosea 4 and 6. And let's look at the bottom part and that latter part of chapter 4, verse 6. He says, I will also, let's read the whole thing. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee, that thou shalt be no priest to me. Seeing thou hast forgotten the instructions of thy power. Watch this. I will also forget thy children. A curse on your children simply because we rejected Yahuwah's instruction. So when you hear people talking about heathen Gentiles, they're talking about the offspring, the children of those that will that continue to reject the instructions of Abba Yahuwah. So you have to understand the remedy was already in place before we even began to reject him. Right. It was already in place because he already knew that we were not going to do right. Because we were not going to have anything to base our doing righteous upon. But the remedy was already in place. Are y'all following me? Yes. Now, even before the time of the renewed covenant, there was always a remedy in place because remember, He didn't come to do away with the instructions or the people of Abba Yahuwah, which is us. That's important for us to understand. Let's look at Exodus 12 and 49. I want to show you something here too. All right, read that for me. 12 and 49.
Exodus 12 and 49 reads, one law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourns among you. And it is so.
All right. Now, let's look at that again. One law or one instruction shall be for the native born and for the stranger who dwells among you. Well, I looked up that word in the English and even in the Hebrew. Stranger. It means also Gentile. Are you hearing me? Yeah. One who is not native born. How many of us in here were born in Yahshua? None of us. We were born here in what is the Americas. So we are considered the what? Stranger. Because we are not native born. So that means he is telling those that were born and continue to be born there that are our people walking in truth. In other words, don't reject them because they are not native born. Okay. But they are still a part of the 12 tribes. We are still a part of the 12 tribes because we are strangers. Yeah. We're strangers or were strangers because we were not born in the homeland. Now listen what he says. He said, it's one instruction for you, one doctrine for you. We don't take up another doctrine because we are not native born. And this is where a lot of people come in and say, well, we ain't supposed to keep the Sabbath. We ain't supposed to keep the feast because we ain't at home. He never said don't keep them because you're not at home. He said keep them wherever your dwelling is. Wherever you're dwelling, because see, he already knew that we were not going to be at home, some of us, to participate. Even though we're not native born, we are still a part of Yahshua. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
That's very important. Let's look at Wayikra, which is Leviticus chapter 24 and 22. Now, once again, we're going to keep looking. That word stranger, once again, also means Gentile. When you have it, and it is so. And it is so. All right, chapter.
Wayikra chapter 24, verse 22, coming from the NIV writings. You are to have the same law for the alien and the native born. I am Yahuwah, your Savior. You are to have the same law for the alien and the native born. I am Yahuwah, your Savior. And it is so. And it is so.
Same instructions, not law, same instructions, same doctrine. We don't disqualify for following in his instructions because we're not native born. He just calls us strangers because we are strangers. Strangers from what? The land that belongs to us. But we're not from his instructions because they belong to us as well.
That's right.
Though we are not native born. And once again, this is why you cannot support and follow people that say, oh, you can't keep the feast because we're not at home. You can't keep this. Well, then you continue to be disobedient and continue to live in a deficiency because of your lack of knowledge. And you're going to be destroyed because the more you continue to tell people, do not follow according to his instructions, the more blood is going to be on your hands. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
That's just like telling somebody, giving people instructions. Now, I'm going to share you this with you. Now, he told us in the latter Yom that we would be, when we go and stand before different ones, think not what to say because the Ruach will give us what to say, correct?
Yeah.
Now, many times people try to tell people what to say, but he said in that hour, think not what to say. This is why we need to be filled with the Ruach HaKodesh. Because people telling people, this is what you're supposed to say, this is what you're not supposed to say. Let me tell you something. When you are stopped by a policeman, you better make sure that you are prayed up and that you are listening to the Ruach HaKodesh. Because she will tell you whether to be quiet, whether to cooperate or what to say. Because these are people that are officials. Are you hearing me? And when I mean officials, they are officials from England that have been given jurisdiction in America. And if you don't know what to say, it is up to them whether or not they want to drag you out that car and make you an example. So the best thing to do is always stay prayed up. Do what you have to do. You know, there are some laws that we are to abide by because we're here. You don't run red lights. You don't run stop sign right on red if it says not to. Just follow the laws that you are supposed to. Are y'all?
Yes.
Because you have to understand there is a way that we are supposed to govern ourselves.
That's right.
Do you have to vote? Absolutely. Go out there and vote not one time. And I will never tell anybody to vote.
That's right.
Never. But what I am saying is in that hour, ever comes down to that, and you are stopped by a policeman or a policewoman, don't open your mouth until the Ruach HaKodesh gives you what to say. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Because then you can be assured that your hands are in the hands of the Abba. Because I can tell you to blab, and that may not be what needs to be said at that time, and it could cause you to be in a whole lot of trouble. Or I could tell you to be quiet and don't open your mouth at all when you should say something, and that could still get you in a whole lot of trouble. But if we follow what the writings tell us, that in that hour, that we are to allow her to say through us what needs to be said, then we will find ourselves, watch this, either way we're protected. Somebody said, but even what if they still jack you up? If they still jack you up, guess what? At least you'll still be protected by the Abba. You're going to still be protected. But if you do something outside of that, then you're on your own.
That's right.
So wisdom has to be the get an understanding. Let the Ruach HaKodesh assess the situation and let her tell you what to say or what not to say. Because it's important that we understand, we can tell people. And like I say, every situation is different. Every atmosphere is different. And you don't know the atmosphere or the that person's ruach, and you tell somebody to say something and that pisses them off or makes them angry, now you're in trouble. So wisdom says, always pray. And above all, just follow the laws of the land, the ones that apply to you. If it does not apply to you, then don't fool with it. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
If it applies to you, then follow it. If it does not, then don't. Because you don't want to find yourself trying to plead the blood and you in error. It's the truth. You trying to rebuke the devil and you're in error. There's a way we're supposed to govern ourselves. There's a way we're supposed to do things. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Now, once again, I'm going to say this again so you understand what I'm saying. The laws of this land that apply to you and apply to me, we are to follow them. Don't run no red lights. And if you have to run a red light because maybe your Isha is in labor, there's still a right way you're supposed to tie a white string or towel on the antenna so that you don't find yourself getting in trouble. And so you can do that if you have to take someone to the emergency room. If it says no turn on a certain time, don't turn. Are y'all following me? The way to keep ourselves out of trouble is just to do what we know to do. Now, if it's some crazy nonsense, like I say, voting and all the rest of this crazy nonsense, no. And then understand this. And I'm going to say this. If you have your children in public schools and they tell you, well, it's the school policy, then I suggest that you pull them out of that school. Because you know we don't follow up behind homosexuals and we don't follow up behind lesbians. And if they're trying to force this teaching and weigh on them, then you have every right to pull them out and either learn how to homeschool them yourself or get with an association that does not promote that.
Mhm.
So no, we don't follow stuff up like that. But once again, decisions have to be made, especially when it comes to our way of life.
Mhm.
They have to be made according to our way of life. So once again, the saying is, if you can possibly, it actually goes, if you don't start nothing, won't be nothing. But there are times you have to make sure that you are trained, but be about your business and go on. There are some things that are not in your hands or in mine.
Right.
But if we make sure we put our lives in the hands of the Abba, then no matter what happens, we're still secure. We're still gonna come out on top. So that's important. Once again, we're talking about the greatest assassinator, or the greatest, I don't like to use the term killer, of our people is a lack of knowledge. You are, and you don't know your responsibility, then watch this. You're gonna find yourself your power. Now you have to understand, you may not understand it, but this is prophetic. Moshe was speaking prophetically, Hoshically. They were speaking prophetically.
Right.
They was talking, and he was giving allowances and showing forth our position in the writings.
Right.
Because once again, when we were not in truth, we were strangers. We were even enemies of the truth because we fought against it. And so it is important that we understand that. It says, one custom shall be for you, stranger who dwells with you. Once again, we are those strangers. So we all have the same, that you understand, because before you can even accept him, there has to be a spiritual renewing within you. So it's important we understand that. But Christianity say they are the children of Yahshua, but they are the spiritual ones. I used to believe that lie too, but no more.
Right.
Bemidbar 15 and 29. You shall have sins unintentionally for him who is native born. Once again, setting in place and setting in order for those of us that will come in from the diaspora.
Yes.
We're that stranger. We're that stranger. All right. Our hearts, we had no issue. We did just like the woman at the well. We dropped our bucket and we went running. Our whole life changed. There's something about this that connected with my Ruach. And we felt the change. We experienced the change. And we continue to move in that change. And we don't want to let that change go. Showing us the different categories of our people. Yashiyah 56 and 6, which is Isaiah. Also the son of the foreigner who joined themselves to Yahuwah to serve him. The name of Yahuwah to be his servants. Everyone who keeps from defiling the Sabbath and hold fast my covenant. He's talking about us. Talking about us. Because let me ask you something really. When you start looking at other strangers, let's do an analysis of people of other cultures. How do you be a stranger, truly, and estranged from something you were never connected to? You can't. You can't. You can't.
Right.
We're those people, the stranger or other strangers, because they have not committed and have allowed themselves to come into this truth. One thing I can tell you that holds a lot of people back is fear.
That's right.
Fear that I'm going to be wrong if I miss. Because Christianity has made people believe that except you accept people for years. Let me tell you something. It was drilled into me for what, 40-something years? 30-something, yeah, almost 40-something years. I was in Christianity. And that was what was drilled in me from 15 years of age all the way up to when I was 40-something. You're going to lift your eyes. And if you go into this way of life being legalistic, you're going to die too. So that fear was put there, that if you rejected Jesus Christ, you was dying and going to hell either way. So that fear that is there, many times people are afraid that if I accept this way of life, I'll miss it and I'm going to die. Let me tell you something. If you reject this way of life, according to Hosea 4:6, you're going to be destroyed. That lack of knowledge is a killer to our people, has been and will continue to be. We're the only ones that see our babies, our family babies, our when I say family, I'm talking about the sister up the road whose son gets gunned down, melanated, gunned down. That's our baby. Dying, why? Because of a lack of knowledge, being destroyed because of a lack of knowledge. They busting in people's doors and killing the wrong people. Our people. Show me one time they kicked in a Mexican door. Show me one time they kicked in a Latino's door. Show me one time where they knowledge of who we are. And it will continue until we submit and walk in truth. And they say it's something like 36,000. Hard to fathom and digest that because you start thinking about we've already in certain generations dealt with. That's somebody's mother, that's somebody's sister, that's somebody's fiance, that's somebody's wife. Are you hearing me? That's somebody's daughter, somebody's grandmother. This is what's happening for what? A lack of knowledge. You don't see anybody else missing. You see our people up there. And then our people hardly ever get the media's attention. Why? Because people don't care. Are y'all following me? Don't care. So you do what we need to do because our people are dying. And if we too busy bickering and fussing and fighting with one another, we can't sound the alarm.
Right.
We got to let the media halfway do it. And they ain't going to do it to truly enough to where people are going to be really warned. But if we're constantly bickering, we're constantly fussing, we're creating posts that stirs up animosity. Stop bending to the whole world.